Hi, this is Alan Pentico again, Executive Director of the Southern California Rental Housing Association. Again, we're doing another member spotlight, a chance for the public out there at large and our members to get to know some of the industry people and members out there that are so actively engaged in the industry and the association. Today, I have a very special guest with me today. Lety, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. My name is Lety Rodriguez. I'm the Senior Portfolio Manager for R&B Management. It's good to come and talk to everybody today about this organization. It's near and dear to my heart, and we've got a lot of friends and coworkers and peers all involved, so it's a good place to be.
We're very happy to have the whole R&B team engaged and actively involved in for so long. You guys have been members. I've been around almost 20 years and longer than I have, for sure. So it's great to have you guys. Tell us a little about how you became involved in the housing provider industry.
Well, how long do we have, Alan?
Right.
I kind of landed in property management. I was working for a bank here in San Diego, and it was a little bank, and it was getting ready to be taken over by a big bank. And so I kind of caught myself in the middle of jobs, and a childhood friend, actually, who is also active in the apartment association, she reached out and she's like, hey, we have a leasing position open. And of course, I'm like, well, what does that mean? And so she's like, well, we get to help people find homes, and we talk to people, and I think you'd be great at it. And kind of being on the back end of the bank, I was, I'm always hungry for people and conversations and relationship building. And I was like, sure, why not? So I interviewed, and here I am 20 plus years later.
Right? Yeah. Well, that's good. I'm glad it worked out that way, and I'm glad you're here. We meet so few people who come into this industry as a career right out of college. It just doesn't happen. Most of the people I know that are doing that are because they're coming from a family that's been engaged in it. They're the child of some people who own property and whatnot. There's very few people who planned it. A lot of people fall into it and they never leave because they love it. It's such a great career path and so much fun. And I'll circle back around to the career stuff in a bit. I think that's a good sidetrack, if you will. Housing providers are often seen in a very negative light. What do you wish more people knew about being a housing provider and what it means to you?
It's very near and dear. I mean, it's customer service, right? I mean, we're here to help people with a lot of personal things, not only just their home. We're here to problem solve. This business has evolved, and the evolution, it just keeps going and spinning. What I wish sometimes is we could go back to just your basics, right? We're here to help you find a home. Let us start there. But it also comes with, trust and, your residents being willing to kind of share their problems with you. I mean, we talk about this a lot. We're not just, the leasing agent or the property manager. It's like some days we're counselors, or depending upon your property, we could be roommate finders or mediators or whatever the case. And so it's just a humanistic approach. And I think that that's important. And I wish that sometimes our customers could see that we are just humans, just like they are. So sometimes I wish they would just remember that too.
I think that's important. I mean, I remember I came from the county supervisor's office where I did a lot of field work. I was out in communities all the time. And in the unincorporated county, where there are no cities per se, the supervisor is the council member, the mayor, and the supervisor all in one. And I never really thought about it much until I came to our industry. When you got onto a property, particularly 10, 15 units or more, the leasing agent and the property managers, they're like mini mayors, mini council members. You're dealing with the pothole politics. You have to worry about the roof and the road and the pool, but as well as about how happy your citizens are. So in our case, how our residents are. And I think a lot of people forget that there's a lot more that goes into it besides, just signing a lease and here's your keys. It's not the way it is.
Right. Right.
And I'll just, for our audience out there, I'll just tell you, yes, you all see the stack of papers on Lety's desk. I was joking around that, in reality, that would look like about 25 rental applications because they've gotten so ridiculously long in California, but it's because all the new laws and things that require us to put a different and new addendums in there, and specific language by law has to be in there now that didn't used to be. It used to be that an application was 2-3 pages at most when I came to the association, but they've gotten quite a bit longer, and we're aware of that, and that's daunting for residents as well. I don't think we're exactly excited to have them that way, and I'm sure the residents are either, but that's just one of those things that the industry has evolved. It's becoming much more professional, and there's much more standards of practice and things like that. And it takes a while to get everybody in the industry caught up to that, but it is going that way just because of the amount of laws that are being applied to our industry. So it's just, everything evolves over time.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about your day-to-day job.
So, gosh, since COVID, the day-to-day job is not only overseeing the 43 properties that we own and manage, the regionals that are out there managing them, but a lot of it has also been risk management. We're small but mighty. We've got over 200 employees, but we don't have a lot of different departments. So it really has been now to pick up on risk management and all the COVID laws, procedures, rolling things out globally. That has kind of been my day in, day out job for the last year. Eventually it will go back to the basics and property inspections and more along the line of budgeting and helping with still risk management, but more of the management and operation side. We just had it, we had to go with the flow, Alan, and this is kind of where we're at. And luckily we've got some great people who work here, and everybody's been very flexible, and including our on-site team members. We're all learning together.
Yeah, you mentioned COVID. What specifically has your organization and your managers and leasing agents and on-sites been doing to accommodate and to work through COVID and protect our residents?
So we've done a lot with, there's been a lot of back and forth with, is the office open now? Is the office closed? So for our residents, we're there by appointment, just so we can go ahead and ensure social distancing. But we're there answering the phones. We're responding to emails. We're, again, evolution and change. And now we're doing virtual tours and looking at how those things are going to stay with us permanently after, after everybody's or whoever wants to get vaccinated, right? So we're just really looking at the change that's coming and what's going to happen after the eviction moratorium, and fingers crossed that everything goes smooth, but we always have to be prepared for the what ifs.
Most definitely. I think one of the things I'm watching really closely for, particularly as the association executive, is what things will we be keeping post-COVID? What processes are we going to stay virtual? Are we, how much more technology are we going to employ? And it's all those things of what it's going to look like. You have to be aware of it, and you have to stay on top of it. And it's important that all owners and managers are doing the same thing to do that. Can you tell me a little about how the association helped your organization with preparing for and dealing with the COVID situation?
So the association has been phenomenal. I mean, I don't know where we would be without you guys, Alan. I mean,
that's good to hear. I'm so glad.
All of the training, all of the webinars. I feel like this, these trends started last year when we all, began taking Section 8 residents, and so there were different evolutions and things like that. But I think really with COVID and just staying on top of everything, the rollouts and the new legislation, I mean, Molly she's just been so on top of it, and I just really can't thank you guys enough.
Well, that's good to hear, and I'll make sure Molly watches this video because I'm sure she'd appreciate that. For our audience perspective, we are now the Southern California Rental Housing Association. For 100 years, we were the San Diego County Apartment Association. At our 100th birthday, we rebranded ourselves because for 40 years or so, we've been managing Imperial County, and for the last 10 or 12 years, we've had Southern Riverside County. So the name change felt important to recognize all of our territories. But within those territories, we have 3 counties, 42 cities, and probably a couple hundred communities. And I have one director of public affairs that manages that with a public affairs manager who's specialized in just the Riverside area. And thankfully, he's a resident up there. That's Mike. So he has boots on the ground, if you will, in Riverside as well. And so it's a lot of work. And of course, they manage the state effort and are lobbyists of the state and partner with the National Association as well. And in our partnership with the California Rental Housing Association and our 9 sister organizations there around the state. It's a big effort just on the lobbying aspect, which is what we're key. We were born out of advocacy efforts, and we educate so we don't have to advocate, make sure everybody's doing what they're supposed to be doing. So new laws don't get enacted that we don't really need. It's just a matter of getting people educated how to do things correctly. And I think that's an important part of it. So I appreciate, thank you for the praise. That means a lot to us because like we are a staff of 7 and we manage all this territory and we produce 80 classes a year and we have 350 active volunteers. That means we see them every month. Yes. And now virtually, but yeah, so I appreciate that. It's always good to get the feedback. What are some of the special things that you and your managers and leasing agents and on-sites and stuff have been able to do for your residents during COVID? I think this is one of those areas that a lot of people just we don't brag enough about in our industry, and we should. Yes.
We have continued to keep up the pace on the customer service side. Again, we're responding to emails, we're answering phones, we're meeting with them by appointment, trying to keep ahead of changes, so when the pool is closing, when the fitness center is closing, like the things that are important to our residents, just trying to keep them informed. With so many people working from home nowadays, they're at the door, please, I need to be updated. And so we're just really trying to stay afloat with all of that. I know that, we've had a lot of residents going through hard times. We've listed where to get resources, who can help. So again, trying to be more of a hub for information where we didn't really have to do that before. That wasn't really, we could hear you're looking for an apartment, then let me, refer you to this website. Now it's like, oh, you need food, you need, assistance, even more so with what's with the wait list opening and the rent reliefs coming. Like we're just ready to go full force starting Monday, just so we can help our residents help themselves.
Yeah, so I'll just point for our audience out there. Today is March 12th, 2021. And on Monday, the new round of assistance programs should be released by the county here. And that's what Lety was referencing. So we're trying to pay attention to that so our residents know as well, make sure they have the resources. And I'll just say thank you to your organization as well, because I know you guys have been big supporters of our efforts to get that gap funding, to get the local jurisdictions and the cities, the counties, the state, and the federal government to provide those resources for residents. We know that they need it. That gap funding means everything to them, and it helps us pay our bills as well, because we have tons of bills and we have employees and insurance and mortgages and all that stuff we have to pay as well. But we also, and I know this from my many conversations with one of your former, now retired employees, Paul and Us, that, we've talked when I was the ledge chair for a long time, that, providing a resident with gap funding for a month or two if they lose their job, a jurisdiction that is able to do that leaves the resident and the property manager in far better shape, and the jurisdiction and the community as a whole. Nobody wakes up in the morning in our industry and says, who can I evict today? That's ridiculous. That is like something that nobody wants to go through. And as much as the residents hate it, it's a process that we don't like either. But it is the tool that the state has given both residents and property housing providers to use. And it's certainly imperfect. But that gap funding goes a long ways would go, and hopefully that is one of those things that we can make permanent. That is one of our goals of the association, that is made permanent. So those residents that find themselves in transition can keep that part of their lives whole. And I know, like I said, I remember these conversations with Paul years ago, that it's always been one thing that you guys have been very much advocated for. Do you have a particular story about a resident that you'd like to share, or?
Oh, I have so many. But you know, there was one in particular that was very meaningful to me, and it was really a situation where I was like, oh, this is really when you don't think that you're making a big impact on somebody, you really are. So I was managing 192 units in Poway, and there was a military wife, and she had a toddler, cutest little boy ever. His name was Eli, and this was years ago. And she would come into the office pretty regularly. And when you're managing a property, you also have deadlines and responsibilities, and it really, you know, I still had things that I had to do. And she would come in, and sometimes the business would go on a little bit longer than, you know, even I wanted them to. And they were, again, pretty regular visits. And it was just a lot of small talk and, you know, how are things going? How's your family? But it went on for pretty much the term of her lease. And when her husband came back from deployment and they moved away, she sent me a letter. And, you know, it was handwritten, and it was really how many of those days that I helped her get through her husband being deployed and being out in a city where it was just her and her little boy by themselves. And she was very appreciative for my time. And she even said, gosh, Lety, you know, I realized that I probably took up more time than I should have, but it meant a lot to her. And you know, that was early on in my career, and it sticks with me because we are a big military town, and it really comes full circle of, gosh, you really don't know when somebody's having a bad day or how to fill their cup or what they really need until you receive like a letter like that to say, gosh, thank you so much for just giving me your time and listening. So that always kind of just stuck with me because, again, we're in, it's a people business, right? And sometimes we have our own agendas and we really don't know that person coming in through the door and what they need from us.
Yeah, you know, that's one of those things I've really come to learn at the association, and particularly working with property managers and leasing agents and stuff yourselves, that you can never know what the person in front of you is actually going through. And, you know, they say until you walk a mile in my shoes, that's not that possible. You know, right. You can never truly walk a mile in someone's shoes. So to, you know, no matter what the conversation is or how it's going, you have to stop and remember that they could be going through something that you just don't know or can fully understand. And to always, you know, keep that in, you know, front of mind, if you will.
Yes.
And, you know, as I tell myself, you know, keep a soft heart because you just don't know. Mm-hmm. And I think that's important, particularly now in this day and age, that you just don't know. And it's often one of those things. I remember a couple of years ago, I had a president of the organization call me and said, I've got this property in Orange County, and I know it's not your territory, but this is what's going, what do I do? And I said, well, it had to do with a parking situation. The jurisdiction decided that they were going to enforce a parking rule that had been on the books for 25 years. They'd never enforced. Yeah, and it was going to create some problems. And I said, well, it's parking. I said, so the first thing I would do is walk down the street, and I'd find any 9-to-5 business that has parking that's in the neighborhood, and I'd talk to the owner or manager and say, hey, if you're willing to let us have our residents park overnight, we'll send our security down and our maintenance crew down to clean the lot and secure it overnight for you. And then we'll also circulate leaflets about your business to our residents. And he's like, I never thought of that. And I said, well, isn't it just the neighborly thing to do? Because it is your neighborhood. You're part of that neighborhood. Right. And he goes, sometimes it's the simplest things. And I said, well, truly, I mean, what people forget is, you know, I don't like to call them tenants. I try not to. I like to call the clients or anything. We're all part of the same neighborhood. And we make up the fabric of the neighborhood just as much as anybody else does. and we have an impact on it. And that's important when you look at it from that perspective. And I think your story sort of tells that you clearly had an impact, and she was looking for a friend and a neighbor. And what the other part of I like to just kind of emphasize is that your residents are your neighbors, they're your family, they're your friends, they're your relatives. That's who makes up our community. Right. And remember that's who you're renting to in one form or another. Maybe not at your property, but it's at a sister organization's property. That's who makes up who we rent to.
Yeah.
We all live in the same community. So I think that's important. Is there anything else you'd like to just share with the group before we say goodbye for the day?
Again, kudos to the team, Alan. You guys have really helped to keep us together this past year. Me personally, I think the information that you guys have provided us with, again, there's a lot of places that we can go find it, right? But there's a lot of research that goes into it as well. And a lot of the times we just don't have the time to go through and, contact different sources to put it all together with a pretty bow. And so you guys have done a really good job with that. And I appreciate it. R&D appreciates it.
Well, good. I'm glad to hear that. I'll pass that on to the team. I'll make them watch this video. I'm sure they'll love it. But if there's anything else that we need to do or change to improve, I'm always looking for that as well. I know that we can always do better, and there's always things that we're going to miss. There is just so much that we try and button up, but we also try to keep the message as simple as possible because we could get bogged down in the minutiae very quickly. Yeah. And so anyways, thank you, Lety, for joining us today. I really appreciate it. It's been a wonderful conversation. I'm so glad to have you all as members and for your support of the organization. So this is Lety Rodriguez from R&V, and this is Alan Pentico, Executive Director of the Southern California Rental Housing Association. For more information about our organization, you can visit us at www.socalrha.org. And for more videos like this one, you can visit our YouTube channel at SoCalRHA. That's YouTube channel at SoCalRHA. Thanks so much, everyone. Take care.
Bye.